you have heard about the Division of Rehab Services. So I'm going to kind of talk about our different programs here at DORS. So just recently in February of this year, DORS has created a new transition unit here in Montgomery County, which is, when I became the supervisor for that particular unit. So I'm overseeing, all of the staff and services for transition services here in Montgomery County. So kind of today I'll be kind of talking about our different programs, our eligibility, how somebody can be referred to our services and things like that. So let's get started. So at, DORS is a state agency, and our main focus at DORS is assisting individuals with a variety of different disabilities related to competitive employment within the community. So kind of all of our services and all of our supports are all geared around competitive integrated employment within the community. If you had joined us earlier, you had heard from DDA about their services. So DORS is kind of a short-term support services geared around employment, where DDA, as you heard, is more of a lifelong supports. They also can support, other resources outside of just employment, where DORS' main focus is just employment. There is no kind of age limit or amount of times that people can apply, which you've heard earlier. So kind of today, I'll be kind of talking about two of our programs that we have for transition youth. The first one will be the pre-employment transition services for individuals enrolled within school. This is about between the ages of 14 and 21. And then I'll also be talking about our vocational rehabilitation services, which is, more of an adult side of services, and there is no, age limit for that. As we go through, DORS, we are, divided into a couple different areas. We have our Office of Field Services, which is our kind of our main services here at DORS. We have offices throughout the state of Maryland, about 20 different offices in the community throughout the state. We also have the Office of Blindness and Vision Services, or OBVS, and this main focus is for individuals who are blind or have vision difficulties. And then we also have our headquarters, which is our Workforce and Technology Center, or WTC, and that is located in Baltimore. They offer an array of different comprehensive assessments, training programs for individuals eligible for our services here at DORS. So kind of getting started, the main goal of today is kind of giving an overview about our services at DORS. Some of you might already been connected with DORS. With that, I'm not going to be able to answer any personal questions today. So if you do have any general questions as I go through, the PowerPoint and presentation, please put it in the frequent asked questions, and I'll try to, depending on time, we'll get to that, or if not, we'll be answering them after that, and they'll be sent out to you. But our pre-employment transition program is a relatively new program here at DORS. This program has been created probably about, I want to say 6 or so years ago. So even though it's been 6 years that we've been doing this program, it is still kind of, in the beginning stages of development and, looking at how are we going to move forward with this program, going forward. The goal of this was for us to be able to work with individuals at a younger age within services. So again, this particular program is for individuals 14 to 21 who have a diagnosed disability. So with that, in order to be a part of this program, all they have to do is be enrolled within school between the ages of 14 and 21 and have a documented disability. And a documented disability can be an IEP, a 504 plan, any medical documentations that somebody could provide to us, a doctor's note indicating or identifying a disability. So that's all that, requires somebody to be a part of our pre-ETS program. Now there is, I'll be going over how somebody can get connected in those processes here in a little bit. Within this program, the main goal is kind of career exploration and exploring what somebody may want to do after high school is kind of the main program. With this, we do have different sections that fall under it that I'll be going over to kind of give you an idea of what different options or services are fall underneath our pre-ETS program. With this, a lot of our services are not done directly with DORS, but we do work similar to DDA. We have providers in the community that offer an array of different programs that DORS has approved and has provided funding for. So a lot of these different programs that we offer under pre-ETS are done, either after school hours, on the weekends, during the summertime, is not directly related to the school system, but this is done usually after school. And again, a lot of them I like to call are different workshops, throughout the year. Right now during, the pandemic, it has impacted some of our services. Right now, the only services DORS is providing under our pre-ETS program are virtual. We are not doing any in-person services at the moment. The school systems are now virtual, mostly at the moment. So as we move forward right now, pre-ETS services are only virtual, at least until the new year. As we get closer to the new year, we'll be reevaluating to see if anything changes here for the spring. But within this program, there's some job exploration and counseling, which is kind of working with the student and talking about kind of what their goals for employment are after graduation. What do they see themselves doing? What are their interests? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And kind of talking about that. Some of these kind of workshops we offer are, individual, where somebody would be working one-on-one with them. Some of them may be offered within like a group setting and a small group setting for that. We do offer some of these services right now, virtually through some of our virtual programs. The next one is the work-based learning experience. And this particular program is more geared towards short-term internships within the community. Usually internships, range from 6 to 10 weeks long. They are short-term, they're not, meant to be, all year long. And within this program, the goal is to, get students to experience the world of work, how somebody can handle their job and things like that. Right now, the internships we are not doing at the moment because that is, involves students being in the community or in a workplace. And so we do not offer them right now at the moment. Hopefully, once we get the green light to open up some of our services, we'll be able to begin those again. Other ones are counseling on opportunities for enrollment. And this is related kind of post-secondary options. So what does that look like after graduation? Who, what are schools talking about certification programs to training programs, vocational schools, colleges, things like that based on what somebody's interested in doing. We also have our workplace readiness, and this workshops talk about the world of work. How does somebody, apply for a job? What do I need to find a job? So talking about resumes, interview skills, work behavior, how do I apply for jobs and things like that. The last section in here is about self-advocacy. How do I advocate, for myself once somebody has graduated high school, within a work setting, within a job setting, things like that. So these are different workshops in these areas to, better prepare individuals for after graduation and being, more independent after graduation. Within this, program, usually a lot of the referrals will be coming through the school system. MCPS, will be the transition teachers usually will be, referring students. There is an online on our website. You can always do, parents can also put in referrals for that. With these services, there is no waiting list for these services. So, there isn't a waiting list for anybody that applies, as well as with this, We don't look at any funding. DORS provides all of the funding for all of the programs. So, this particular program is funded through DORS, no matter, who applies. Once usually a referral comes into our services, we will be mailing home kind of a letter with the counselor that's assigned to work with you, along with an information sheet that needs to be filled out and returned. And usually like an intake meeting will be scheduled to talk about, your son or your daughter, kind of our services and getting everything prepared for that. Um, as we move forward, we kind of be now talking about our vocational program at DORS. These kind of services are geared more towards after graduation. At this moment, individuals about 2 years before exiting school can apply for vocational services in more preparation for after graduation. As well as, after graduation, we do have an adult counselor. So, again, anybody can apply for services anytime. There's no real timeline, whereas DDA, they have more of a strict timeline on, applying for services, getting into services, and getting things set up. Where at DORS, there is no real timeline, and anybody can sign up at any time, really, or multiple times throughout throughout their lives. So again, we're a little bit more laid back in that sense, that there is no real strict lines. Unlike DDA, there is more of a flow and when people have to be signed up for it. With DORS, we work again with a variety of different individuals with all different disabilities: physical disabilities, mental health, intellectual disabilities, deafness, hard of hearing, vision, all of those kind of different services. With our vocational services, if somebody is eligible for our services, our services will be looked differently for everybody. So if eligible, the first main goal is kind of identifying what kind of employment goal do you want to work with and work towards. Again, some people as young adults, may have different goals now as well. 15 years from now, their goals may change. So again, this is either working at any short-term goals of just finding a part-time job, or focusing on, longer-term goals and what they want to do maybe in the future. With those kind of services, once a kind of an employment goal and a track is determined, that's what helps us outline what kind of services DORS can provide. Not everybody is going to provide the same services or get those services. It's going to look differently based on what that goal is. Within, our services, some of our services under our vocational services, we do look at income, and some of our services, we do not look at income. It is on an individual basis. If we are looking at income, some of those income areas that we're looking for is when it's coming to supporting any post-secondary training programs. So some of those post-secondary training programs, we do look at income. We not only look at income when it comes to post-secondary programs as well, we're also looking at, what is the employment goal? How is that related? Is it a realistic employment goal based on the student's abilities, potentially grades? So we're also looking at their maybe academic levels. Where are they performing academically? Did they meet the requirements for attending a college or a trade school? And what does that look like? We're also looking at financial aid, and are they eligible for grants or scholarships, as well as we're looking at family income. If you start claiming them on taxes, just like FAFSA, we look at family income up to the age, I think of, I want to say 21 or 22, but we do look at their income as well. So again, we're not only looking at income, but we're also looking at the individual's grades and abilities as well when looking at supporting that. Again, most of these services we will be talking about, individually with your DORS counselor, because it's on a case-to-case basis. Other services we do look at income is related to purchasing, medical equipment, as well as assistive technology. So again, like maybe hearing aids to braces to wheelchairs, medical services and things like that. We do look at income. Other areas that we look at, are, that are free or counseling and guidance through your DORS counselor. We also provide employment kind of services. So Again, some of these stuff on this slide I've talked about, the assistive technology. Some services that we do not, look at income is assistance in helping people with finding a job. So again, this may come in different areas if they're looking for jobs right away, or if they're going to a training program and then find a job. Once they're ready to find a job, we would connect them with one of our providers in the community to assist them with finding employment. So again, what that would look like would be through the job preparation or job search assistance. And so what that is, connecting with a provider for them to work one-on-one to assist them with finding a job. So that assistance would be meeting with them once a week to help them with filling out, job applications, helping them with updating resumes, practicing for interviews, filling out job applications, following up on job applications, to maybe going with them on job interviews. Again, the support is going to look different for everybody. Some people may have the ability to fill out applications on their own. So maybe during their weekly meeting, they're not going to focus on filling out applications, but rather, work on maybe following up on applications and going out to businesses and dropping off resumes or making phone calls. So again, everybody's going to utilize these services a little bit differently depending on somebody's ability and need. But with this, they would be meeting with somebody once a week to help them with finding a job. Again, I like to say this process is a 50-50 relationship. If the individual is not meeting with them once a week or putting in efforts in finding a job, it does limit what we are able to do at DORS or what their support person is helping them find a job is able to do as well. If they're not meeting with them, it's hard for us to help them with finding a job. We do, our providers in the community do have business relationships where they, can follow up with businesses on your son or daughter's behalf, as long as they give permission to do that, to see where applications are, help them try to get their applications seen. But at the end of the day, DORS or our providers, we can't force a business to hire somebody that they don't want to. Again, some of the things, people may assume that DORS has just these jobs to be able to give to individuals with disabilities in the community, and that is not the case. Individuals still need to apply for jobs just like everybody else, and they still have to, get asked for an interview and get hired just like everybody else as well. Our goal is hopefully to provide them that support throughout that process, support in filling out the application, to interview support, to support in communicating with businesses, their potential needs or supports, and things like that. Or other services that we provide once somebody obtains a job is what we call job coaching support. So what job coaching support is on the job support and assisting them in learning their job responsibilities, and connecting them with managers, helping them learn their job duties and supporting them within the job. Again, our services are considered short-term. So once somebody has obtained employment and are doing well, once somebody is doing well in a job for 90 days, then our services would end. We would be closing their case and they would be continuing moving forward through obtaining that job. For individuals who are currently getting like supported employment through either DDA or the BHA department, if they are eligible for that, they're eligible for what we call supported employment. And again, what that would mean is that DORS would be providing the initial support or funding to help somebody get a job. Once they've obtained that job and are doing well, we would be closing that case, and then DDA or the BHA provider would be then providing any ongoing support that somebody may need after the case is closed with DORS, to continue doing monthly check-ins or monthly supports if needed on that particular job. Again, if somebody's case is closed, they can always reapply as they get older, depending on the individual and the supports they need. Again, our Workforce and Technology Center is located in Baltimore. They do have different opportunities. Most of those services are done there at the center, but we also have local providers here in the community in Montgomery County and throughout the state that also provide similar programs. Again, those kind of things will be talked about individually as somebody becomes eligible for our services. Again, as we move forward, some of the referral process will be through the schools. It can be through online, and things like that. Once we get a referral in, we will be, processing that, sending the application for our vocational services. Again, this is 2 years before they exit high school. Um, and then we will be viewing those kind of paperwork. We have a full application, as well as we want to collect a little bit more documentation than we did for our pre-ETS program. So we're looking at IEPs, psychologicals, educational, speech, if they're seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist, collecting all the documentation to determine their eligibility. Within our vocational services, there is an order of selection. So there is an eligibility process, unlike our pre-ETS program, where most people are eligible as long as they have the documentation. So this does look a little bit different. Right now we do have 3 kind of orders of selection, most significant. And that's if somebody has 3 or more areas that could potentially impact them on finding, employment, or their disability has impacts. These individuals are eligible for our services right away. We have significant, which is our waiting list. And that's if somebody has 1 or 2 areas that could impact them in finding employment. And then we have our last category, and those individuals are not eligible for our services. At the moment, right now, people that fall in our significant or our wait list, there is a chance that our wait list may be closed here in the near future. But some of the areas that we do look at, when I say 3 or 2 areas, we're looking at areas like communication, mobility, self-care, self-direction, interpersonal skills, work tolerance, work skills. So we're looking at a bunch of different areas when determining that eligibility, which we'll be able to collect through, IEPs and those medical documentation. We'll also be looking at characteristics of some disabilities related to like autism or Down syndrome and things like that as we make our decisions, because some characteristics, there might be longer term impacts, shorter term impacts, depending on the individual. Usually once a referral comes in, we'll be mailing home applications to complete, requesting that we do an intake meeting where we'd be meeting with you and your son or daughter to kind of talk more specifically about our services, our eligibility, have a chance for you to ask any personal questions related to your son or daughter, review the application. Once an application is submitted, we have 60 days to determine somebody's eligibility, which that counselor would then go through that process and make that determination for that. If eligible, then we would be meeting to kind of start developing a plan for services. Let's see. Again, with our services, our pre-ETS services, there is no waiting list. Everybody that meets that qualification will be eligible. Our vocational program I just went over, again, we do have an eligibility process, and they have to be determined most significant in order to reserve services at this time. I know I'm running a little bit short. We have maybe 4 minutes left, so I'm going to try to go through these last couple slides and hopefully be able to answer a couple questions. Funding, most of our funding, like I said, our pre-ETS program, we do not look at income. Everybody that qualifies for this program, we do provide funding for those programs in our pre-ETS services with no cost to family or individuals. When it comes to our vocational services, like I said, there are some services that we do look at income. We do have like a sliding scale. Those kind of services would be talked about one-on-one with somebody, if eligible for our services, and what that might look like. For individuals who are receiving Social Security benefits based on their own disability, we do not look at family income for, and that's related to our vocational services. Some part of DORS here in Montgomery County, we do have DORS counselors assigned to each of the high schools here in the county, where they would work closely with a DORS counselor. Typically, we have 4 vocational counselors or transition counselors here in Montgomery County. At the moment, we only have 2. We're looking to hire 2 other ones. Right now, we're kind of on a hiring freeze with all of the pandemic going on and everything going on. So right now we are a little short staffed. So we have kind of 2 counselors kind of overseeing all of, our vocational services and pre-ed services here in Montgomery County. I'm still working with some of the schools in my area, as well as we do have a little bit of help from Marcia, who used to work with us at DORS. So we are, working with the schools and trying to process everything as quickly as we can. So there has been some staff changes over the last, couple months and trying to work together. But a big thing is working with the schools for that. Again, this program kind of outlines some of the pre-ETs and our vocational services and kind of looking at the difference for that. A lot of, questions, if you do have questions about, DORS or are you connected, you can always reach out to your TST at the school if you're still enrolled in high school. Our DORS counselors have, monthly meetings with the transition teachers to kind of help coordinate services from high school to then, the transition teachers can also let you know who the DORS counselors are for that school and who's working with them and can help, provide some information. They're also a great resource, in seeing where things are at and where things go from there. All right. So I think we have just a couple minutes. I know maybe a minute or so. I know it was a little rushed, but this, goes just to kind of give you an overview of our services. A lot of, individual question will be based on your individual case. So it's hard to kind of answer in a big group setting.
Good. A lot of good information in there. Thank you, Adam. We do have a couple of questions that I want to touch on here. Regarding pre-ETs and the pre-ETs program, is it individual? Can it be individualized, or is it just small groups? And if so, how many people are in those small groups?
So again, we have different programs in our pre-ETs, so some programs may be individually, one-on-one support, some are done in group, there's a combination. So again, there's a little bit of everything. Again, it could be depending on the individual where, maybe some of the group stuff won't be appropriate for them and they would need more of the one-on-one. So again, it will all depend on the individual or the student on what might be appropriate for them. But there is a combination of both individual and group.
Okay. And the pre-ed services are all virtual right now, correct?
Correct. Everything right now, we are not doing any in-person pre-ed services for the moment. It is only done virtual, which again, then also limits us on what kind of supports we're doing. So some of the programs under our, pre-eds program, we're not able to really do, like our internship program. Right now we're not able to do that because all of that stuff is in person for the moment. So it does limit what we're able to do with our pre-eds at the moment.
So since all the services are virtual, are there accommodations for students who maybe are already having trouble accessing or attending virtual classes?
Again, this is where it comes into tricky part. We don't have, services where somebody's at the house that can help them go through that. Again, it would be virtual. So again, some of that stuff, in our virtual stuff may not be always appropriate for everybody either. I've worked with some families who, the virtual is, the support that they need, the virtual and their attention to being on, a virtual call with somebody one-on-one is not necessarily working. We don't really have any kind of solution at the moment for that. Okay. That would be maybe waiting until we're able to do more in-person stuff where that, direct support could be provided for them.
Okay. And then a couple of questions about this, and I think you mentioned this during your presentation, but DORS has no connections to local businesses, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So we do not have just like a list of businesses that we can, give you. Really it is, them working with, a business one-on-one to kind of advocate for individuals, advocate for hiring individuals with disabilities. Hopefully, our providers and DORS are building relationships, but at the end of the day, we can't force a business to hire anybody that they don't want to hire. Everybody that is with us still has to apply to the job, still have to go for interviews, and they still have to be hired by the business, no matter what we say or do. So we're not like an employment agency, so we don't have just jobs that we can hand, individuals based on what they want to do. They would still have to apply and go through, the process of getting a job just like everybody else.
Okay, and just maybe 2 or 3 more questions here. Just a quick clarification: if someone is enrolled in pre-ETS programs, are they automatically enrolled into vocational programs after they turn 21?
No, they are not. So if they are just in our pre-ETS program, they would need to also apply for a vocational program. Again, this is usually done around probably 2 years before they exit. So depending on when, a student is exiting high school, if they're exiting at, in 4 years, or are they exiting in 6 years, will determine when that process goes. So usually about 2 years before they exit, they can begin the vocational, process. Again, we are short staffed. So again, following up with, your TST at the school and saying, hey, where are things at? If you are working with a pre-ETS counselor, reaching out to them and going, hey, it's about time, I think, for vocational, for that. Where do we begin? You can also make those, suggestions as well. Right now, again, we're very short staffed, so it's hard for us all to kind of keep track of everything sometimes. So again, following up with that would be fine. But again, they would have to apply and be eligible for vocational services.
Okay. And DORS is Maryland only, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
So we
so
only, provide those services here in the state of Maryland. There are, it is federal regulations that each state has, a vocational program. We all follow under the same rules, but each state might implement them or have a different process on applying and being eligible for that. But each state does have a vocational program. Our services would only be here for the state of Maryland. If you did go to another state, they would have to apply for their vocational program there in that state and become eligible in order to get those services there.
if they live in Montgomery County but work in DC, can they still utilize DORS services?
Yes, they can. Now, again, it might be, looking at providing a, finding a provider that is willing to go to, DC to provide any like job coaching supports. If they get a job in DC, that may be a little tricky. I know that there are some providers out there that will, be willing to travel to DC to provide, job coaching, on the job. So again, we would have to look at that. But we can still provide services as long as they live in Maryland.
Okay. And I apologize, we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions here, but I just wanted to ask one more about individuals who maybe have higher level needs, and if DORS can serve individuals who maybe have some more significant challenges or some higher level needs.
So again, again, it's going to depend on the individual. Again, they can apply and be, we would have to go through our eligible process and they would have to be determined eligible for services. Again, some of those areas, we're looking at determining eligibility are like communication and mobility and interpersonal skills, work tolerance, work skills, mobility. Again, we're looking at all these different functional levels and how their disability may be impacted when determining that. In order to be eligible for our services, they need to meet at least 3 or more of those areas to be determined eligible in order for DORS to provide services. So again, it would all depend on the individual. Also the documentation about their disability and how, confirming, diagnosis and disabilities and potential impacts in order to determine eligibility. So again, they could be, eligible. I can't say from just, that question. The biggest thing would be for them to apply and find out if they're eligible. If you don't apply and complete an application and go through our eligibility, I can't really base if you are or not eligible just by, asking questions and things like that. You would need to, submit that paperwork for us to really fully determine if they are or not.
Okay.